Well, I'm super excited to bring this new show to Track Yakka, let me tell you. This one's called CookemUp. And I thought I've been thinking about this for a while. I've been getting lots of feedback on the Track Yakka app about people asking, I'm heading off for the weekend, I want to cook some good quality food. How do I do it? Oh, I just use canned stuff. I'm going, I can't answer that. But I know a guy that can. This is Adam. I'm going to call him the super chef from the Super Butcher. You want to check that website out. This guy produces some good quality food, restaurant quality food by a qualified chef. And he says it's easy. I want him to prove it and show us how we can do this restaurant quality food at a campsite with gas, induction cookers, Webers, all the stuff that we've all got. Adam, over to you.
Well, thanks for the invite. I'm super pumped to be here. I'm going to take my 17 years of experience and see what I can bring to the table. Give you guys a bit of a few techniques, some Australian produce, some real good quality meat from Super Butcher, and turn that into some awesome restaurant quality meal in front of views like this.
What are you cooking for me today?
We've got skirt steak taco today. It's a wagyu skirt steak. Got this from Super Butcher on the way up. Beautiful, beautiful steak, that one there. It's got a lovely marble score in there. She's going to render down real nice for the tacos. Change up that taco meal to something real classy. All right guys, let's get started. So today, like I said, we're doing the skirt steak taco. We've got some beautiful wagyu beef here. Timing wise, we're gonna get the corn on first. That's gonna take the longest to cook. So I'm just gonna chuck this in some foil, a little bit of butter. I've got some real nice pepper here I wanna show you. It's gonna add a whole nother flavor to your corn. You've all done this before, just barbecued your corn. We just wanna get some nice char marks, some good flavor, some barbecue flavor in there, just to change up this salsa I'm gonna make with it. And this bad boy here is smoked pepper. It's beautiful. Got a very fragrant, smoky flavor, and it's also a really good table finisher, so you can add that last little finish. A little Murray River salt here we're going to use. Going to roll that up now, tuck the corners in, smash it on the barbie. Lenny, if you want to chuck that on for me on loud. I'm going to cook that for about 15-20 minutes to get it started.
Loud as in hot?
Hot, yeah, cook that on loud, yo.
Getting used to the chef
talk,
mate.
So I'll get some of this stuff out of the way. And we're just going to move through what's, I want to cook this one next because we want to get it cooked, charred, and then cooled down because we don't want it to be too hot when we mix up our salsa. Same with the corn, really. We're not going to use the whole lot. We're just going to use probably a quarter of it. Just get enough for probably 2 cups worth, I guess, if you're going to dice it up, which we will do after we've charred it up. So today we're just going to do a basic slaw, a little more basic than I intended, but it's going to be there anyway. Today we're just doing red cabbage because the carrot's on the bench at home. But even then, that's still going to be a lovely little slaw. Also, I'm choosing a fairly neutral one here. I'll rely on this one when I'm making anything I'm using mayonnaise with slaws, potato salads, pasta salads. Usually go for this one because if you want to add ingredients for flavors, it's really neutral flavor, but it's really, really nice and creamy. So we're just going to shift this bad boy up. Just keep it nice and even. When you got through some of it, just punch them in your bowl there. It's going to be the bulk of your taco, so it's going to be a fair bit of that in there. So I'm going to punch through all of this bad boy. It fluffed up really, really nice, that cabbage there. Normally at this point I'd add the carrot, but not today. So I'm just going to use that mayonnaise. Probably use most of that jar for that amount. Call it 2/3. Mix it up. I mean, you can always add more, you can't take away. It's always a rule of thumb, guys. And like I said, we don't want this to be drowning in mayonnaise. We don't want it to hide the flavors of what we're doing with the meat, all that time and effort we're putting in. And right before I serve it, I'm going to add some salt and pepper as well. I don't want to add it too soon because the salt's going to draw out the moisture, the water content from the cabbage, and it's really soggy slaw. So that's all dressed up now. All right, now we'll get started on our pico de gallo. That's the salsa we're working on. A pico de gallo, it's a Mexican fresh tomato salsa usually. It's usually always what I call Spanish onion, your purple onion, coriander, and normally tomato. Today we're doing one with burnt corn. So we're just going to dice this as fine as you're comfortable. I'd probably say go as fine as you can, just because this is a sort of a finishing condiment. If you get a nice fine dice on that bad boy. So I've got the onions ready to go for both the pineapple and the corn. All right, now I'm just gonna go through the coriander. Now the coriander, don't be too stressed about it. I mean, if you don't like coriander, if you think it tastes like poison or you're one of those people, that's fine. You can sub this out for parsley. It won't be as authentic a flavor, but it still works. All right, so I just finished chopping that coriander there. Like I said, use as much or as little as you like, or not at all if you don't like it. All I'm gonna do once I finish that, before I eat the taco, just squeeze a little bit of lime over it, and that's gonna like dress the whole lot tight all together. All right, wagyu. For today's purpose, we just got like a nice low to medium grade marble score. And if you're not aware of what marbling is, I'll open this packet up and show you. So the marbling is that line that's in the muscle tissue. All right, and that's what's gonna render down. So we wanna cook that to probably about a medium, give that a good chance to render, and that's gonna permeate the meat with nice flavor and also add to some tenderness as well. So when you're trimming the skin off, sort of always try and trim away from yourself. So I'm just gonna get the knife just under that silver skin. It's gonna be really easy. And just trim it up, just like that. Give it a turn, and just hold that knife up towards the silver skin and trim it off that way. It's also a good idea to always remember the orientation of the grain, because when you cut, we want to go against it. The reason is, if you cut with it, you're getting this long strand of meat tissue in your mouth, and your whole mouth has got to deal with that whole strand there. Whereas if you cut against it, you're only dealing with smaller portions of that strand. So that's why we cut against it. So when you're eating it, your mouth has got more of a chance to get through that, not these long stringy pieces of meat, especially with something which you can see the grain's quite prominent. So also a nice little trick, one of the boys down at Super Butcher was talking about, when you're doing barbecue and you're heavily rubbing your meat and you cover it to a point where you're not going to be able to see the grain, a good little trick is just to give it a nick before you cut it. So when that cooks, that's going to open up a little bit and you'll know that's the line you got to follow. All right. Sweet. All right, so this is ready to go. We can rub that. We've got all that silver skin off. I've got this product here from Lane's. It's Fiesta. It gives it like a, when you rub or choose a rub, you really want to think of your finished product. Now, a taco's Mexican, right? So this has got a really nice Mexican profile, but with a whole nother level to it as well.
Whoa.
You know what I mean? So that right there is going to be your perfect choice for doing this meal. So we're going to give it a nice coating, both sides. And another thing to note while I'm going along with this rub here is that I've had this meat out of the fridge for about 45 minutes. Good reason is you want the internal temperature to match the outside temperature as much or as evenly as possible whilst you're cooking. If I bring it out of the fridge, we get a more even cook, and you'll see like a less of a grey overcooked area and a raw undercooked area. All right, so we'll get this over to the baby Q over there. All right, that nice sear is what you want to hear. Get that straight down. We got about 7 to 8 minutes aside. We're going to come back, flip it over. All right, so we've just flipped the skirt. It's on its last bit of cook, so we've got about 7 minutes to punch this out. So it should be plenty of time. We can start with the corn. So I'm just going to run the knife through that. If it's a bit heavy, lever it up. That's why I got a nice long knife here. I've got a good lever on it. All right, and then we're just going to take the kernels off like you would any other time. Straight in the one. So we've got that one in there. We'll just break that up with a spoon and we're good to go. And we'll get this other pineapple dressed up. All right, so just dice this up, roughly the same size as a kernel would be, because you really want the salsa to be a bit uniform. But like I said, I'm not about pressure, I'm about or finesse in too much of a sense. I'm more about flavor, and it's all going to taste the same. You just really want it to be a nice even mouthfeel, really. All right, so we've got our salsas ready to go. All right, we've had about 15 minutes. Still a bit soft in the middle there, but you can sort of feel it's moving around. It's sort of tightening up a bit. Got a nice char on the bottom. I'm going to use that as a bottom because as it rests, it's going to release some moisture and some juices into the bottom there. You want that char to not get lost. So I'm just going to wrap that slightly, some foil. Not too tight. You just want to keep some of that, a little bit of the heat in, not too much. Just wrap it loosely. Mostly sort of just keep the environment off it, and it can just sort of rest in there. I've got the tortillas here. I'm gonna turn this bad boy down a little bit, probably about, say, 1/3. So about 1/3 of the heat in that bad boy. Just less them on there. They're only gonna take about 4 or 5 minutes, if that. So I'm gonna go 2 minutes aside. I'm gonna bring this back over. So just had that resting for about 5-8 minutes sort of thing. I'm gonna go with the grain for one, just because, look at that, lovely. Because I want this sort of length in my slices. So now I've gone that way, I'm just gonna come across against the grain. This is beautiful, guys. This has come up amazing. Glenn, you wanna come and build you one?
I absolutely do.
I've got some tongs here. Pick your meat.
Absolutely. I'm gonna go 4 pieces on here.
You do whatever you feel. All right, so we've got the pineapple and the corn. I'd encourage you to try them separately, so pick one you wouldn't mind. And just as a finisher, if you're into a little bit of chili sauce, this bad boy here, it's got an awesome flavor profile. It's a little bit different, but it's gonna work really, really well with these flavors. It's got a little bit of garlic in there, smoked garlic in there, and then all your typical chili flavors.
Chilling me up, my friend.
No worries at all. And it does have a bit more heat. It's on the more medium side than you'd be used to, so it's a bit hotter than your Tabasco, but that one is a good accompaniment.
That, my friend, is hitting every taste bud and singing in my mouth. That is absolutely delicious.
Yeah, so like I said, it's a little twist on your normal tacos. Great one for the campsite and all on camping cooking equipment. So let's get stuck in, eh?
Tender as.
Yeah, yeah.
That was a great drive here, wasn't it?
Wasn't it?
Through the forest, bit of dirt roads,
Yeah.
all the way to Kenilworth River Camp, I think they call this. Kenilworth River Camp.
Yeah.
Creek running through there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful spot.
It's the beauty about getting here during the week too. No one here. Great spot. What's for dinner, mate?
So we got an organic rump cap. We're going to reverse sear that tonight. I'm going to walk you through that process. I'm going to do that in the Weber-Q. And we got this bad boy, aside from it being freezing cold, or expect it to tonight. It's not too bad now. We're going to get you to use set this up for us so we can use the coals, cook in the camp oven.
Yeah.
Put the veggies in there. So yeah.
Can definitely do that.
Yeah, sweet. So if you want to steer this, while I go get some veg prep done.
I'm very good at steering this.
No worries, mate. All right, see you in a minute.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So today or this evening we're going to do something like a real basic sort of dinner. I'm just going to do some roast veggies in the camp oven. And I'm going to focus on technique with the rump cap. Well, tonight we're going to reverse sear it. That basically is a backwards way of thinking. It's a bit of a barbecue technique. We're going to do a little cheat on it. We're going to do it on the Weber-Q tonight. We're going to bring it to an internal temperature of about 50 degrees. I've got one of these bad boys. It's a digithermometer, really important. I'm going to start the potatoes. I've got way more here than we're going to need tonight, but this is a bit of forward thinking. I'm just going to get them ready for meal tomorrow. So we're just going to roast these bad boys, and the pumpkin I'm going to do whilst the steak is resting. I'm just going to do that on the grill. So we're going to cut that a little fine. We'll get started on these bad boys. So the ones in the bottom, I'm just going to chuck in whole with a little bit of oil, salt and pepper. Leave the skins on. So I'm going to pick a few nice ones for tonight, and the other ones I'm going to cut up. So these ones here, I'm just going to do what they call Hasselback. It just sort of creates a little extra surface area. Just want to cut your knife almost all the way through it, but not all the way through it. All right. And then we're just going to oil those bad boys, salt, pepper, and then sit them on the coals at the fire over there. Now, it looks like we're not quite ready, so we're going to do a little cheat. What's the name of this camper, Glenn?
Oh, the Zone RV.
The Zone RV. The Zone RV has got this gas cooker next to it. It's gonna save us a bit of time. A little bit of olive oil, don't be scared of that. Salt. All right, back to the smoked pepper. I'm gonna get a little smoke flavor through there with it, not too much. If I was just using the potatoes for the rump cap, I'd probably add a little bit of the rub there as well. All right, so these guys are ready to go. I'll just prep the pumpkin. I've got a butternut here, just a half cut. I'm being super careful to keep my fingers out of the way. And I'm just gonna peel it nice and close. You can leave the skin on, it's not a big deal. I like taking it off. It's up to you though.
Would you like me to put that camp oven on there to preheat it for you, sir?
That would be great.
Fantastic.
Appreciate it. So I'll just take the seeds out of this tail end of it. All right, that's pretty much ready to go there. Just gonna cut it into some like nice, probably 1/2 inch, I wanna say, thick. You don't want them to take too long to cook because while they're on the grill, they will burn. Then we're just gonna lay them, give them a little olive oil, salt, pepper, and lay them on the grill when they're ready to go. Okay, now for the rump cap. Like I said earlier on, I like to do the seasoning right beforehand, even with a piece of meat that's this big. I like to do it right beforehand just because I know it's gonna be in there for about 40 minutes, and that's gonna be enough time for that rub to really soak in anyway. So I'm just gonna take him out of his bag and walk you through a couple of the features, I guess you'd call them, of a rump cap. Now this is, because of its proximity to the fat, usually the most marbled out of the rump. All right, so yeah, as you can see, there's not a lot of marbling through this one. This is the organic rump that we always stock at Super Butcher. So if you have a look at the meat, we've got our grain running this way. Like I said before, the reason we need to make note of this is because when you get a steak or a rump steak and it's always cut this way, which leaves a longer portion of the grain in each slice of the meat, which is sort of contrary to what we want. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna trim this up and I'm going to show you how you want to cut it, how you want to trim it, and how you want to prep it so that when you've rubbed it and you've roasted or you've reverse seared it, you know where to cut your steaks from. So I'm just cutting the silver skin off now. The idea behind this reverse searing process is to get it slow at the start with your smoke flavors. So like I said, if you're doing this on a smoker or you're doing it on a in your Weber, you chuck a smoking cube in there, or you use a nice flavored wood chip, and you get your smoke flavors through there. Today we're just using the technique for a temperature prep. By that I mean we're just gonna get it slowly to temperature with these low temperature cooking, so that when I take it off and rest it, all I've really gotta do is sear it. Now the reason I wanna do it like that is because it's gonna be the guaranteed perfect cooked steak every time. And because it's low and gentle cook, it leaves less room for error when you've got the searing part, because when you actually take it off, or you cut your steaks and you put it on the grill, all you're really doing is putting the char marks on it. You're not really cooking it, you're just giving it that color. That's the reverse sear. So you're doing the sear at the end, not at the start. So all I'm doing now is I'm taking a bit of the fat off the edge there. And because, like I said, this one's not heavily marbled, I'm gonna leave a bit of it on, but I'm also gonna cut a decent amount down, because when you rub a meat or you season meat, you really want the seasoning to be in contact with the flesh, not the fat, because the fat's literally gonna act like a barrier. So just gonna trim a bit of this off, bit by bit. You don't wanna take it all off straight away, because we wanna leave a little bit on there for rendering. If you were doing like a brisket, for example, or if you were doing this in a smoker, you take all the fat off. But you'd probably choose a piece that's got a little bit more marbling in it if you could. That way you get the rendering from the fat from the internal parts of the meat muscle. Today I'm going to leave a little bit on, but I'm going to do a little flap technique so we can still get the best of both worlds. All right, so now I'm getting close to the meat muscle here. All right, so you can see I've come through in a couple of pieces, but not all of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get the knife, take a little bit more off here. I'm just going to run it, pointing down towards the fat, because as I described earlier on today, underneath all fat is a silver skin, And that's going to be the hard part that we don't want to eat. Same as what I trimmed off the bottom here. But it's also going to help guide my knife to stay on top of the fat and not the meat. So just always pushing towards, back towards in, not straight down, just slightly. And you're going to be able to lift that off like that. See, that's coming off a bit. Right, I'm going to take it all the way off. I'm just going to leave it a little bit on because, like I said, it's a little bit leaner, this rump cap, but I still want some of that fat to render down because I'll be having that fat facing up, so as it cooks, it renders down through the meat. And because I've taken that silver skin off, when it does render, it's got more of a chance of penetrating. Once you're happy with that, get the rub going. I always tend to find I get the best results when I cook in beef tallow, when I'm cooking steak. It's just, I mean, it comes from the animal. It's got a good flash point, so it's not a bad thing to do, to render it down. You keep it in the fridge, it'll last 2 or 3 weeks easily, sometimes more. You can buy beef tallow as well if you don't want to go through that process, but you know, we're just throwing that away, you might as well use it. So that there, I'm just going to flap that back over, chuck him in here. Now I've got the Q sitting on about 100, 110, and we're just going to sit that straight on there. All right, so just right in the middle there, drop that down. So that's going to be in there. I'm going to check it after about 20 minutes. I've got a temperature probe here. Super easy to use, just open it up. You can change it to degrees Fahrenheit, whatever you like to work with. I've got these stubby coolers I've given to the crew as well. Glenn's got one as well. On the side here, we sell these at Super Butcher. They're just good because they're a little cheat sheet. All right guys, so we've had about 45 minutes for the rump cap in here. About 3/4 of the way through, I flipped it over. Just because you've got to remember with a Weber Q, all the heat's coming from the bottom here. You just want to make sure it's not going to start cooking your meat too much. So at this point, it's not going to look like a lot. So I've probed it, and I want anywhere between, you know, 45 and 50 degrees. That's going to still be quite rare in the middle, but it's still going to have a nice flavor penetration from the rub. And if we were using like a smoking technique, like with your offset smoker or your Weber, your traditional style Weber, you get a lot of smoke flavor through there as well. Just rip that out of there. I'm gonna keep those juices in there for later. I'm gonna turn that into a nice little sauce. I'm gonna bang them over. Now there's nothing we can really do with that fat on the top there. So I'm just gonna trim that off. Just the fat. Be careful not to go too far into the meat because you really don't want to jeopardize the seal on the meat, because that's when you're gonna start losing moisture. All right, so I've just got that there, and right now I'm just gonna wrap it in this butcher's paper and just let it rest. I'm just going to sit that over by here and just let it rest. One of the things I did do, I noticed, because of that technique, because of the nature of the way this grill works and the heat's all coming up, it was getting a bit too hot on the bottom. So I just crushed another one of these bad boys down, just to sort of as a base. That's going to help give it a bit of protection from the heat that's coming from the bottom and allow the Weber Q to really do its circular heating that it's designed for. All right, so I've got the pumpkin that we cut before. I've cranked the Weber back up. She's going to get to temperature pretty quick. Just going to drizzle a little bit of olive oil, toss it around so it's nice and coated. And again, just the salt and pepper. So we come straight back up. This bad boy is sitting around about 180. And like I said before, be nice and fast with this Weber Q. And this is a good technique to cook pumpkin for things like salads as well, because you can cook it quite quick and they have a nice texture and flavor. So we'll just fill up what we can fit, get them cooking. So while that's rump cap's resting, just going to punch out a little sauce using the juices that have come off and caught in that roasting tray there. So just get the onions in that pan, a little bit of olive oil, get them sweating first. Super simple way to use up those juices. So all I'm really going to do is I'm going to sweat these down to get a little bit of color, add a little bit of garlic, a touch of flour at this point and sort of make like a pseudo roux. and then put those juices straight on top of that and adjust it with a little bit of beef stock. It's gonna be a real beefy sort of gravy, pan gravy sort of situation. That's probably half a tablespoon of garlic in there. That's just some minced garlic. All right, we're getting a decent amount of color in there. Just remember, as soon as you put the garlic in, you're on a timer. Got to keep it moving because that will cook a lot faster than your onions will. All right, so I don't get too heavy-handed with this. I'm just gonna put a little bit on the lid. Yep. Yeah, sweet, that's all I need. It's probably about a teaspoon and a half. And cook that down. It'll start getting really thick and bindy real straight away. Cook it out a little bit, give it a little color. All right, just off the heat. Juices in there, just warm that up a little bit. All right, straight in there. All right, that's gonna thicken up quite quickly because there's not a lot of liquid there, but we're gonna straight away add some, smell that, beautiful. Add some more stock. This stuff's Cape Grim stock. It's beautiful stuff. It's not exactly cheap, so you can use any stock you like. Let's crank that up. Let that drop a little bit. We're almost ready to finish up. Just let that come back to the boil. Make sure it's the right consistency. All right. So we're at the final stretch here. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take this pumpkin off, let it rest. Keep it warm though, so I'm just gonna chuck some chuck a lid over it or some foil over it. And just over here, I've got the potatoes I've just taken out of the camp oven. So I'm just gonna use those ones that I hassled, those cuts in it. I'm just gonna chuck them on the grill for a little bit, just to get a little bit of crisp on them while I prep the meat. All right, so we've had that resting for about 15 minutes now. So the grain's running this way, as you can see just from that top camera there. So that means we want to cut it along this way. Yep. All right, so I'm just going to cut a couple of thin strips off the front there, because these ones are always going to be, the thinnest part's always going to be more cooked. We've wanted to take it to an internal temperature of about 50 degrees. That outside stuff's going to be up around the medium well, as you can see. Having said that, if you do make a mistake and the internal temperature comes up too hot, just whack it off, let it rest for a minute, chuck it back on, the whole thing back onto sear, and then just slice it like you would a roast, because that's basically what you've done. But for us here, I'm gonna cut some nice long steaks here. I'm gonna use those 3 beautiful pieces in the middle there for us. And then now it's ready to go, I'll rip those potatoes off and start the plate up. All right, so when you plate them up, just use that structure to nice and fan those out there. All right, chuck some of that pumpkin in on there as well. Beautiful grilled pumpkin. All right, nice in the center. All right, now I'm gonna grab these steaks here, straight on the hot grill. Just like that. The lid down. And we really want probably 30 seconds aside, maybe 40 seconds aside, and that's all it's gonna need. That's gonna take it to a nice medium. It's gonna have lots of flavor from that slow cook. All right, here we go. Lovely reverse-seared rump cap. All right, so from there, just a little bit of sauce, just a little bit, it won't need much, it's gonna be so moist inside there. Glenn, you wanna come grab some dinner? All right, you ready for tucker?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, you got yours, mate?
I do, mine's ready to go.
Just go and sit around this fire.
Sounds great.
With a whiskey, grab your whiskey.
All right, got my whiskey.
Cheers, mate.
My pleasure. All right, good morning, guys. We're here at the Kenilworth Creek campsite. Just gonna get some cafe-inspired breakfast for you guys. Show you how to do some poached eggs, fried eggs, do a couple of different versions of a bruschetta, just so you can Be a little bit versatile in what you're doing. So I'm going to start with, I've got some lemons here. When you're poaching eggs, you need acid in the water. I've got some water boiling over in the pot over here. Always get that going first, because the water can take anywhere from 5 minutes to 12 minutes, 15 minutes, depending on the size of your pot. So I'm just going to squeeze the lemon out. Now when you're putting acid in the water, you can use white vinegar, brown vinegar, lemon juice. Just be aware that anything you put in that water, the egg white's going to take the colour on. If you don't really mind, apple cider vinegar is nice. It does send them a little bit brown on the outside of the egg, but if you don't mind the look of it, the flavour of it's really, really nice. We're going to use lemon juice today. A decent amount for a pot. I've probably got about a 2.5, 3 litre or 4 litre pot on there. I'm going to use 2 full lemons. It's going to give me about half a cup. So a fair amount of vinegar or lemon juice in the water. It just helps the egg whites set as soon as you crack it into the water. So I'll just dump this in the water and we'll get started on the rest of it. All right, so we'll get started on 2 different types of tomatoes here. I'm just going to show you a couple of different ways to present the bruschetta, just depending on what eggs you want to use. So I'm going to do some poached and some fried today. I'm going to take the seed out here. It's just going to stop it from getting too wet. Now the reason I'm taking that seed out because of the water content is like, bruschetta is a bread dish, and though I do have a sourdough today, which is a little bit more robust than your typical like sandwich white, you don't want too much moisture content happening when you're eating the dish, otherwise you just do get a soggy mess. Just dice them up in the bowl. I'm going to punch out all these tomatoes. And I'll show you how I want the other ones. The other ones we're just going to slice straight through. So I'm just going to go probably 2 to 3 mil thick, just straight through. I'm going to do a couple for this one. All right, now for the onion. So 2 different styles. I'm going to dice some and slice some the same, sort of marry it up so they all sort of look a bit similar. It's all working the same for each application. Really fine for the slice. Just a couple. And the dice also as fine as you can, as you're comfortable with. Probably just need a quarter of this one. And that goes in there with the diced. Now interestingly, while I was in Italy, we all know bruschetta to be tomato, onion, basil. I never got it with basil when I was over there. 3 or 4 times I had it, it was always with dried oregano. So I'm going to put that in with one of them today, just as one of our flavors. So with the diced, I'm going to do your basil, and with the sliced, I'm just going to sprinkle some dried oregano we've got over here. So let's dice the basil up, get that through the diced salsa. Slice them straight through. Nice little fine shreds. You don't really need to dice it up. This will look nice on the plate. Some nice little shreds like that. All right, now we've got the 2 salsas prepped. We've got grill hot. Water's all boiling. All right, we're going to slice up some pancetta. I've got some salumi pancetta, restaurant grade pancetta here. Buy that at Super Butcher. Sort of like a bacon, I guess. You can use bacon for this dish. So I'm just going to kiss it real quickly on the grill here. Just give it a nice thin slice. It's a great product though as well if you want to use something different for your pasta dishes. Just dice it up nice and fine. Saute it off in the pan. Lovely flavour. Now you can get the guys at Super Butcher to slice this for you if you don't want to go through this rigmarole, but it's a beautiful product. This way you can get it as thick or as thin as you want it. So we should be ready to go. All right, I've got the sourdough here as well. I'm just going to butter that, grill it on the grill. All right, so I'm happy with those grill marks on that. It's going to come up really nicely. Just going to sit them aside on the plate up here, and we'll just warm them back up again just before we serve. Same with the bacon. We'll give that to the pancetta. Give that a little bit of a flash on the grill here. looking good. So I'll also just stick those off on the side of the plate here. When we're good to go with the eggs, we'll just give them another flash, warm them back up. All right guys, we're just over here at the cook section of the zone-based camper here. So water's boiling, like boiling. And the reason you do that, if you're cooking poached eggs and you're using the spinning method, you can really only do one at a time successfully. So with this, you really want to put a pot of water on that's going to be too big for your application, really. You want a lot of water in there and a lot of water moving. And then just get close to the water, drop your egg in there. I'm just going to do 2 at a time at the moment, to the size of this pot. Get that back to the boil as soon as you can so the eggs start moving. And then we're just going to fry some eggs up. Just got a little bit of oil in the pan there. Get them hot. Now these will only take about 3 minutes from when you drop them in. Chuck a timer on if you like. You've got those eggs floating around nicely. See how the whites have sort of stayed together? That's because of the vinegar in the water. Just make sure you got something like a spoon with holes in it or something like this to grab them out. So just sort of leave them alone for the first minute. So I've got the 2 lids. I like to put a lid on my fried eggs so they cook on top as well. You don't sort of get that orange sort of yolk exposed, that sort of white's over on top, but I enjoy that because that exposed egg is just some raw white. So get a lid on that one straight away. And then I've just got a plate set up here with some paper towel. So when you pull the eggs out, you want the water to drain away. You don't want to add any extra unnecessary moisture to your dish. So I've been in for about 2 minutes. We can just check our eggs. Be careful not to pierce that yolk. She's still a bit soft there. You'll feel the white is still not firm, but the yolk you want a little bit loose as well. So when the white firms up a little bit, it'll be ready. If you don't like runny poached, it's going to take about 5 to 6 minutes. All right, that should be it for our poachies. Now, if you're doing this for a big group and you've got to do a couple of batches, just wait for the water to come back to the boil. See how it sort of dropped a little bit. Chuck your lid back on, cook some more. Super easy, it's easy as that. All right, those fries are looking nice. Slide them out of the pan. Perfect. All right guys, we've got everything ready to go now. Both of our eggs are ready. Just got our, I've turned the queue off. I've just got our pancetta and our toast in there to keep them warm. Let's start the plate up. Now, I've got a few things going on this one to really jazz it up. A couple of pieces of toast in the middle of the plate there. All right, and this is where the difference comes in, all right? So with the sliced one, I'm just gonna grab a sliced tomato, lay it on, a little bit of onion rounds, lay them on, just like that. Just a little bit of oregano on there, just a little bit. All right, now for the diced one, I'm gonna kiss that with a little bit of olive oil, just a touch. I'm gonna finish them with olive oil as well, but I just wanna dress that slightly. I'll do that at the end because the olive oil will start slowly breaking down your tomatoes. All right, then we're gonna go on with the bacon or the pancetta, whatever you're using. And this is where your presentation can really show off. Really class it up. All right, so I'm gonna put the fried eggs on the sliced one. Just lay them on top like that. You don't wanna hide all the tomato. And the poachies the same, sit them on top. All right, now comes the magic. This bad boy is a camel feta, available in super butchers. I would recommend anybody try this stuff. It's not like a goat feta where it's got that real strong flavor. It's actually more subtle in my opinion than cow feta, but it's beautiful, lovely. I believe this cheese took out Cheese of the Year in second place in the world a couple of years ago. Just gonna break that on over the top. A little bit of balsamic glaze. You can get this in any supermarket. Just gonna give it a little dress. Just a little dress. Finally, just a little bit more olive oil. So you can see there's a little bit of moisture content going on there. That's why I really like to use that sourdough for this dish. A little bit of salt, just for your eggs and tomatoes. There we go. You hungry, Glenn?
Oh yeah.
Here we go, my man.
Poachy for Gleno.
Poachy for Gleno.
Cheers, mate.
My pleasure.
Oh, I don't know if I can eat this. Looks too pretty. This from Summerland Camels?
Yeah, yeah.
We did an episode out there at episode 11 on Dust 'em Up.
Oh, okay.
Amazing place. This is really good food, eh?
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on our first episode of Cook 'em Up. My mate Adam here, I'm going to get him back. We're going to do a heap more, let me tell you. And I'm going to put my hands up to be the guy that takes him around. Until next time, cook 'em up.
Appreciate it, guys. G'day guys, Adam here from Super Butcher. If you want to impress your mates and take your cooking to the next level, just go on to superbutcher.com.au, select your postcode, we deliver to your door. Any of the products you've seen on our shows.